everybody. Welcome back to ArtsAltoona channel. We are very pleased to have with us today one of the recent inductees into the Blair County Arts Hall of Fame, Michael Allison. Michael is a visual artist amongst many other things that we will be talking about, and he was actually recognized on September 13th in the category of visual or public art and architectural inductee is what he was. We are sitting in the beautiful Baker Mansion in some space that Michael had a very large hand physically and strategically in restoring. So we'll be talking more about that. Michael, your bio in the program said that you've been doing artwork for 45 years. How did you get into art to begin with? How far back does it go?
My earliest memory is of me with a pencil in my hand drawing.
Okay.
So it goes back, well, not to the womb, but it goes
elementary school.
It goes way back. No, before elementary. This
Okay.
was before elementary. This
Okay.
was around the time of kindergarten.
Okay.
Used to take notepads, tear all the pages out, tape them together because I like to work. I've always liked to work big.
Big.
And then drew dinosaurs on them,
cool.
which of course were just outlines.
Okay.
But still, it was always there.
The drawing was there, and it's grown from there.
Yes.
Okay. So I know that you've been involved in many sorts of art. I know you as a painter.
Mm-hmm.
When did that sort of begin, and how has it evolved over time?
Well, there was no art in my family home growing up. Just not something my parents were particularly interested in. Though my mother did as a hobby paint by number pictures. So, of course, everybody did back then in the 50s and
Many
the 60s.
of us did,
Sure.
that's right.
So, anyway, what actually happened was a neighbor took some interest in me. She was a Sunday painter. She had an oil painting set. And she decided that this was just going nowhere for her. And she had been observing me and decided to hand these over to me.
Cool.
Then I had an aunt in outside of Harrisburg who would send me landscape pictures from the Sunday paper, the ones she liked.
Okay.
And she would ask me to do little paintings of them for
Okay.
her. So that really got me painting, and
Right.
those were my first kind of commissions.
So commissioned work.
Commissioned
all right.
work, right out of the chute.
Very
yes.
good. Very good.
So, and I did silly things like painted T-shirts for my friends and things like that. And once again, it was commercial work because I managed to get paid for it.
Cool, very cool. I know you have done many murals. I know of one in Hollidaysburg on Route 22.
Yes.
And I know that there's at least one on the Lincoln Memorial Highway,
There's
Route
four.
30.
There's
Four of
on
them,
Lincoln
okay.
Highway, yeah.
And I know you recently had a commissioned work in Oil City.
Yes.
Where you did Chief Corn Planter, was it?
Yes,
and,
it's
some
called-
of the oil men.
It's called Chief Corn Planter and the Oil Men.
Okay.
And it's a 23-foot high by 12-foot wide mural.
Wow.
In Oil City, where they have their Main Street program and their redevelopment program have come together to start a city beautification program. And one of the things they're doing, besides encouraging artists to move to Oil City, was also to create a mural program to beautify Oil City. And so I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Now, how did that work? Did you have to submit a concept as other artists did, and then yours ultimately was selected for this location?
Artists there was sort of like a cattle call, a general, the CRE was sent out saying, we are looking for submissions. These are buildings where property owners have agreed to cooperate with us. And so I submitted 2 designs. There was the one that we ended up doing they particularly liked. They have a committee, so it's sort of curated. And I ended up doing the painting. I actually did it in my backyard.
I was just going to say, you created it here.
Yeah,
and then
it's
had
on
to transport.
aluminum sign panels.
Okay.
And it was transported to Oil City. A frame was attached to the building to hold the panels, and then they were attached to the frame.
Okay,
Excuse
okay,
me.
cool. I know you also were the selected person to do the portrait of Jetta Capri as our first woman judge, first woman president judge, is on the verge of retirement. And at her retirement dinner, which I had the privilege of being there, and saw you unveil your painting. How did you develop the concept? How did you work with the judge? Because she doesn't stand still for long. And how did you accomplish that work?
Well, I have painted judicial portraits for Cambria County previously,
Okay.
so I had a little bit of experience. And I painted portraits off and on. I wouldn't call myself a portrait painter, but it's something that I'm able to do. Surprisingly, if you Google judicial portraits, there's a format. And they don't vary too much. But what I was really interested in, because of her significance...
Well, they do have to look judicial.
They do, and they have to look like the person, which after going through the courthouse, I would say some of the portraits there are a little hit or miss.
Okay.
But no, I wanted to capture Judge Capriva, and because of her significance, I wanted to get a little bit of her personality. So she has a very distinct body language. There's a gesture where she's holding her glasses, which are on this big sort of glitzy chain that she hangs around her neck. And that's a very characteristic gesture. Also, I had her holding a law book in her other hand. And she also tends to sort of lean a little bit against furniture and things like that when you talk to her. So I tried to put that in the portrait. Okay. And I think we succeeded pretty well because we've gotten a really great response from it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm not as familiar with your sculpture work, but talk a little bit about what sort of sculpture that you do.
Well, I toy with sculpture.
Okay.
And I have done some limited edition pieces, which have, from time to time sold well. And I have done some commissions. Right now I'm working on a commission that I don't want to talk about too much, but I've done pieces for the renovated playground in Hollidaysburg at the elementary school, and it was a commemorative piece, and it was kind of abstract, and it was a mosaic. I've also done some things for commercial clients. Some of them are more artistic, some of them are a little silly, but when you get into commercial projects, you can get a little silly sometimes.
Okay,
So.
all right, very good. And I know that you're affiliated with Art in Common, and
Yes.
it was said in the program book that you were one of the originators or founders. Tell us a little bit about that. What was your thought, and how did that all come about?
I had a stint as a museum curator.
Right.
It was for about 8 years.
And that was that you were the first full-time
first
curator
full-time
at
curator
Southern Allegheny Museum of Art, up at the mothership at Loretta, right?
Yes, at the mothership. And as a participating artist too, I would go to exhibitions, and then I would hear my fellow artists, and they would come to me to complain, of course, that there weren't enough places for people to show their work. And I said, well, here's how reality works. If one of you goes someplace and says, I want to show my work here, they'll show you the door. If 20 of you walk in, they'll become a little intimidated and may listen to you. So you need to found an organization that has a little bit of clout through membership and can demonstrate quality, And so I said, I'll tell you what, let's get the word out, which spread rather quickly. It happened in about a 2-week period. And I'll call a meeting. And I had the doors to the museum extension in Hollidaysburg at that time, was where it was located. So I opened the doors, and there was a line of people waiting to get in, and we went in and we had a discussion, and we decided to found an artist organization, which became Art in Common.
Cool, cool. And I know that they have had, I think, annual exhibits at Altoona.
Yes.
And their latest one is about to open up very soon, I believe.
I think it's running right now.
Oh, really?
Fact,
Okay, I didn't think it had opened quite yet, but you may well be right. So that's wonderful. I know that they have a lot of fun social activities. They learn from each other, and they do joint exhibits and a variety of other things. And it is an open membership organization.
It's an open membership
for artists and those who support the artists
Yes.
as well, I believe.
Yes.
Okay,
Hence the name.
right. art in common. I always struggle with it. Art is arts or art, but it's art in common.
Art in common.
All right. I know you're on the board of Bottleworks in Johnstown.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that facility, that organization, and maybe what ArtsAltoona could learn from them.
Well, Bottleworks started out as a single building. It was an old bottling plant, and the building was got together by Rosemary Pulowski in Johnstown, and it was turned in. It was to be an ethnic arts center. Then there was another factory building next door, and the impetus behind that, I think, was largely the former mayor, Don Zucco, and that became Artworks. And that was to be a place that was a very sophisticated looking exhibition gallery with a gift shop and also space to rent for artists. And it took a while for that to come together, but then it became sort of logical for them to merge. And so they became Bottleworks Arts on 3rd. Okay. And now they have put together a consortium of other presenters in the Cambria City area. So they are using that consortium to apply for grants together to try to, there's now a mural painting, I don't want to call it a fad, but there's a lot of mural painting going on in Cambria City, which is something else we've been trying to get off the ground. There's a mural project coming up that I'm going to head next year that may produce a mural that's 1/4 of a mile long. So we're really excited about that.
Cool.
And they also had either the wisdom or lack of it to put me on the board. So I still think I'm meant to be the jester there, but
cool.
You know, I'm on the board.
I know that there's a lot of kids and parents around the community that know you as the pumpkin guy at Harvest Fest and many other events during the fall, but I know Harvest Fest is one of your big gigs. Yeah. How'd you get into carving pumpkins? And they're not the little cut out, triangular eyes that I can handle.
They're three-dimensional relief carved pumpkins. Well, thank you. Trust me, there are guys who spend their full lives sculpting things like action figures and portraits of movie stars and things like that that have me beat all hollow. But I enjoy it, and it's a fun thing to do in October, especially when, like this Saturday, I'll be carving outside of Gettysburg, and the pumpkins will be raffled off, and the money will go to the Humane Society.
Oh, that's
so wonderful. That's the kind of thing that I really enjoy. Right. But the Altoona Mirror was looking for what artists would do if they carved a pumpkin. So I carved my dog, and I did a relief carving. And
now, what does that mean, a relief carving?
Well, in other words, you need a very thick pumpkin, and you need it to be a specific shape, and then you carve deeply into the pumpkin. And so instead of just having an image on the surface that's cut through that you light up, you actually have an image carved into the pumpkin. So it's literally sculptural. And so anyway, that's sort of what I do with pumpkins, and it's a lot of fun. And it's a very temporary thing, but it's fun.
Right. You are local, homegrown. You grew up here. You still live here. You went to Bishop Guilfoyle.
Went to Bishop Guilfoyle. Went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. Okay. I always joke that I've been allowed out of the area on good behavior. So I've been places like Portland, Oregon, and various places in California and New York.
And people like Oil City actually pay you to come and visit.
They pay me to come and visit, and so far they just absolutely. Saturday was the dedication, and I got a lot of love, so I want to keep it that way.
Very good, very good. I know that you played a character a while back at the Canal Basin festivals and others. What was that character's name? And what was the concept?
Well, there was an old-time fair that benefited the Y. I don't know how much it benefited the Y, but it was a lot of fun to do. And the Padmonskis wrote a script for a train robbery every year. They had a different scenario every year. Right. And I said, and of course then there was booths with people selling food and crafts and things like that. But I said, we got to punch this up. And so I put together an old-time traveling medicine show. So I played Professor Flapdoodle. And I had my Hall of Wonders, which was in essence what you would call a freak show.
Yeah.
And of course we had a patent medicine that I handed out to the public, and things like that. And we had musical interludes, and we had things like the Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas, and such things as the porthole from Noah's Ark, and Goliath's underpants, and they were really amazing things. We had the strongest boy in the world, and we had a living mummy, and just
cool,
silly things.
So, talk a little bit about Baker Mansion here.
Okay.
What you've done here, how you research something like this.
Well, fortunately, Baker Mansion and the Historic Society have a treasure trove of records of Elias Baker's business dealings and also his transactions building the mansion. However, they can be a little skewed because that's one side of the story. So we were able to read that sort of thing. But English being the language that it is, and it's changed its usage over the years, it's evolved. It's a little hard sometimes to determine what those notations actually mean. We do know that the mansion was wallpapered, and the grant money that we used and the private money we used did not provide for that. So the determination was made to stabilize each room as we worked in it, and to try to make it as pleasing to the eye as we could and as historically relevant. So the palette that we used throughout the mansion is one that was derived from the paint technicians who restored Mount Vernon. So these would be typical early American colors that would have been manufactured in Philadelphia, for example, which is where also Elias Baker's wallpapers came from. They had companies that were making wallpapers in the 1840s in Philadelphia. And so he was able to go and buy things as he had money to do so, and to decorate this at that time, rather magnificent house. So we very carefully researched everything, and there was a great deal of give and take as far as how we went about things. And eventually, you build trust. And as long as you're not being ridiculous, people will go along with you. And we've had a really good response to it. My main point was to stabilize the walls and ceilings, because there was a lot of cracks, there was a lot of plaster falling, giving away. There were places where there was water damage, and the plaster was literally falling away from the interior walls, which are brick. And so there was a lot of that kind of work, just general conservation work to be done. So that the decorating actually became sort of the icing on the cake, the secondary part. But
beautiful icing.
Thank you. Everything that was done, we tried to keep it well within the time period. So that's why you would see a whole lot of what they call faux painting, because it just really wasn't done until much later.
At that period.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. There are plenty of other things we could have talked about, but short attention span theater these days. I'm sure we've gone long enough. So thank you very much for being with us, Michael Allison.
And thank you, ArtsAltoona.
Thank you.